I'm waiting for the link so I can share it.
It's coming. There we go. So let's just double check. Is it on the page?
It showed up.
Yes, let's pin it to the top again. Pin top page. There we go. It's pinned to the top of the page. So that's that painful exercise done. Right. And get the clock going. There we go. So 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, folks, to the WPTonic show. This is episode 559. It's our first episode of 2021. Survived the Christmas, New Year period, didn't get the virus, and I wasn't at Washington yesterday. So everything's fine and dandy, isn't it? Got my great co-host Stephen, and we've got a great friend of the show, a sponsor of the show, a member of my Friday show panel, Spencer Forum. He has agreed to come on, and we're going to be talking about the lessons that he has learnt and the arrows in his back that he has received in launching his LaunchFlows plugin, a add-on plugin for WooCommerce, but much, much more than that. So, Stephen, would you quickly like to introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Yeah, my name is Stephen Souter. I'm from zipfish.io, where we optimize servers and the code to make your WordPress site blazing fast.
And Spencer, can you give us a quick 20-second intro about yourself?
Sure. Spencer Foreman, longtime WordPress advocate and I'd say author and teacher, but really I focus now on helping people understand there's a small stack of plugins you need to achieve all the goals you want out of your e-commerce membership site and so forth. And we focus on mainly using WooCommerce and making it do things that it never could before do on its own, including sales funnels and so forth.
That's great. And before we go into the main part of the show, I want to talk about one of our great main sponsor. Obviously, Spencer also sponsors the show, his company does, but our main sponsor is Kinster Hosting. Kinster is a specialized WordPress hosting provider. It's a great company. They've been supporting the show for the past 3 years, and it's been much appreciated, their support, and it's just been a great sponsor. Why should you care? Well, they supply really fantastic hosting. It's on the Google Cloud. If you've got a client that needs good hosting and good support, I would have no concerns about you sending them to Kinster. So if you're looking for a hosting plan for yourself or for a client, go over to Kinster, have a look at what they got to offer. If it meets your requirements, sign up. And if you do that, please tell them that you heard about them on the WPTonic show. So we're going into the main part of the interview. So Spencer, what's the background story to LaunchFlows? Why did you decide that it was time to go into the arena of a commercial WordPress plugin?
Well, in the course of all my other being involved with WordPress, my other endeavors were actually creating plugins and creating things back in the days before the page builders. And although the specialty of consulting that I did went away from that, WooCommerce became a real powerhouse. I would say it's probably the most fundamental plugin that anybody can use in a WordPress space. Ironically, even if you're not selling anything. So as WooCommerce grew and as WordPress grew, it became very clear that other platforms, Kartra, ClickFunnels, Kajabi, and so forth, and even the CRMs like Salesforce, Infusionsoft, HubSpot, were making it clear to people that there's a way to onboard and register new people, track them with marketing automation, take them on a journey. And as my relationships and experience in WordPress continued forward, I was very fortunate to meet Jack Arturo, who we started a relationship professionally for me to help him with the marketing and other aspects of product market fit.
Can I just slightly interrupt and not being rude? How did you meet Jack?
Well, one of the things that I've always enjoyed about WordPress is it's kind of like if you were a baseball fan or a rock and roll fan and you had access to all the players or all the rock stars. See, WordPress is sort of a potluck dinner, right? Even today, you have an environment where if you want to get to know your favorite author, it's not like they're locked behind a paywall somewhere. You could just reach out and say hi. Well, I give credit to Luke Stacy, who works with me directly. He discovered Jack's plugin when it was in its infancy, and he brought it to my attention. And the two of us looked at each other and more or less said, game changer right here. Like everything is going to be different because Jack's plugin allows you to connect an outside CRM to WordPress, which was sort of one of the missing links. So I immediately reached out to Jack like a fawning schoolgirl at a rock concert. And I said, Jack, I don't know you, but I guarantee you're going to want to work with me because I saw his product not as a geek tool, which he can speak for himself on that, but I think he looked at it more as a geek tool. I looked at it as a marketer's dream come true. And as such, we worked professionally. He retained my services professionally at first, but then I immediately said, look, we need to just be more of a collaborative effort because the long-term prospects for this are obvious. And I think that's where we bring the story to today, which is I've always enjoyed, you're one of the people and Steven's another person. I've always enjoyed meeting anybody that's involved with WordPress because you never know how those pieces fit together. But here's the thing that I think I do to solve problems today. And what I guess you could say my focal point is that the page builders and the other plugins and the specialty tools in WordPress have sort of taken this potluck dinner of 200,000 plus random things made by people. Like everybody's making meatloaf. And a few of them have stood out from the rest. And by organizing those and as a consortium sort of saying this minimal stack of really well done things all working together solves the problem that you don't need the confusion of the rest. I think that's the future of WordPress. And most all of it is really, believe it or not, stacked in many ways upon WooCommerce. So LaunchFlows is my contribution at the development level to what I was already doing at the consultative and hands-on level, working with both the authors and the people. And the only twist to the story is I have the advantage, I'll call it the second mover advantage. In late last year, before all the pandemic and stuff, there were other plugins who do the sales funnel modification of WooCommerce. In other words, WooCommerce as a product is like walking into the Home Depot. You just are overwhelmed with like, here's a shop and a million products, and you click a product that goes to a product page, and then a product page goes to a cart, and a cart goes to a checkout, and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. These other plugins were trying to achieve what everybody really wants, which is how can I sell my product or service or register somebody from A to B with nothing in between? But they all had various flaws. Because of my experience in coding, my experience with relationships with other authors like Jack, I had second mover advantage. I decided in the beginning of this year to just make the lean, mean, focused plugin that modifies WooCommerce along with other cool page builders to do the thing people need without breaking other stuff. And that's it.
That's great. Over to you, Stephen.
So in building LaunchFlows, you have this idea and you start, building your MVP or whatever, as most people go about doing. But then when it comes to launching a product, like that's where a lot of people, I think, get hung up. Like, how do you know you have something good enough? How do you know you have something that you can, ship to the market? Like, how do you decide that, like, yes, this is what the market needs? Or at what point did you decide to start selling the plugin after you started, putting some of these pieces together and writing some of the code behind it?
It's interesting because I've read in other entrepreneurial endeavors that, they say things like, if you want to start a new business, you do it as a side hustle while you have a job, right? So I never built LaunchFlows as a livelihood. It was never intended to take the place of where I make my livelihood, which is on the professional consultative level and so forth. At the same time, I also had that second mover advantage, which is to say, I have not only access to my own audience of students and clients. I mean, there were probably over 20,000 at the time I started. It's over 30,000 now. But also I had the advantage of being able to go in and help the people who were struggling with other people's products. Now, I will admit to you, there's a certain level of politics and friction, and in one case, some real little drama. When you come in and see there's something wrong with somebody else's product and you try to improve upon it, you do that at your peril, but you can oftentimes be a Robin Hood for many people. We've seen this, for example, like when WooCommerce, who was a theme company at the time, came into the Jigo Shop plugin and said, guys, I have such a possibility. You're just really not doing it. We're going to take the plugin. We're going to buy out all your developers. And it's nice to know you. That's open source. I didn't take anybody's code. LaunchFlows was created from scratch. But I will tell you that one of the well-known first movers in the sales funnel space, I was in their early days helping all their clients to try to get around the fundamental flaws of their product. And I would say to this day, at least half of the LaunchFlows customers are refugees from that software because it's still not fixed. The other half are people that come from the other worlds, like the CRM world, who are just saying, look, I don't want to pay Russell Brunson $300 a month when I can have and own it and control it on WordPress with WooCommerce, LaunchFlows, Elementor, WP Fusion, and so forth.
So when you were coming up with the idea of LaunchFlows, were you solving like your own internal need, or was it because you had all of these clients that you were kind of consulting with and talking? You're like, oh, I know this is a need for all of these people, and everybody's asking me how to solve it, and there's not a good way, so I'm going to create that way.
Yeah, I mean, you raise a good point. It's absolutely the method of, I used to teach this at 1WD, but it's the way to success, whether you are going to make $1 at first or not. Find the pain. So the definitive universal pain was people wanted to sell their product or service and onboard new users to their marketing automation in an easy way that also made sense with something they could trust for e-commerce. So the pain was people in WooCommerce were so close, but couldn't do the things that really made the difference between I'm lost in Home Depot versus here's the thing. So sales funnels and upsell, downsell, cross-sell, instant registration, donation forms, and so forth. Then you go and help people solve the pain with the existing tools. So the first 3 to 6 months, I was in that other group finding what's wrong with the existing products and trying to work out, weirdly enough, I didn't want to be a developer and coder, but like working out coding patches. That's what led to I have a solution for the pain. B, unfortunately or fortunately, the solution is not viable by patching what's here. I just might as well put it into its own fresh product. And then the last part is if you can give away or experiment with people on your own dime with that thing and it works, then you can sell either to teach them the pain or offer to it in a ready to go bundle. And that's essentially what happened. So I didn't have one of these like, there's nothing wrong with it, but like pay me to do I forget what you call those things, but where you sell people on the idea a product will come in the future. I follow more of the, let's get in the airplane. You're all getting on board for free and I'm going to work on the engines while we're flying. And if it works, then stick around. If not, not. And that's how it worked out. It was never a cost of development because I was just doing it as a side gig on top of my stuff. But at the same time, I had an infinite amount of people that were willing to jump on board and say, yeah, please solve my problem. And that's where you got the testing.
That's super cool because I feel like, people say like find the pain, or like oftentimes like, you're solving a pain that you have and then you start looking around for other people that have that pain. But like, because you went more of the like community route, like I'm going to be a part of these communities that I know there's this pain exists and I'm going to talk to all of these people, right? Then when like on day one, when you start to build that product, when you start building LaunchFlows, right? Like you have all of these extra people that are weighing in and what everybody's thinking versus just like your own silo, which I know like I've struggled with in the past when like building products. It's just like, oh, this is a pain, I'm going to solve it. And it turns out your pain is a little bit different than everybody else's. And so the more people you get weighing in on that, the more accurately you can build out that product and that feature set that you're offering. So
you bring up a good point though, which is the beauty of WordPress, because it's open source. I'm not referring to taking advantage of somebody else's code, but because it's open source, you can see how they did things. Yeah. So if you have a technical area of expertise, or it could just be not on the technical, it could be just you could see how they sell it or how they price it or how the customers are in their own, this is what happened in the one group, in that other company's own Facebook group. dozens and dozens of people begging for some help. It was like in the 1WD days, one of my earlier companies where we taught freelance development, I had a thing I taught. It said, go find a small fishing hole and stick your line in and see if the fish bite, because it's way better to build a product, build a solution into a small community, a Facebook group of people or a single product, and then you get your first 100 customers versus trying to sell into the open market at first where you'll never get the attention. And just to add on to your point, that's kind of the thought process in it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Back to you, Jonathan.
All right. I was wondering, on reflection back, one of the problems with a product like LaunchFlows is it's not a form plugin, or it's not a pop-up. And I'm not being disparaging to form plugin developers or pop-up developers. I'm just pointing out it's really easy to explain what it is. It builds forms, it builds pop-ups. You know, you can explain what you're doing in literally one sentence. Mm-hmm. And the majority, unless they know nothing about websites or WordPress, your audience almost immediately knows what the plugin does. Yours is a much more, on the surface, a more complicated proposition. Has that been a challenge, Spencer?
Well, I grant you that the marketing message is always challenging when you're building even a first layer plugin. So for example, what do I mean by first layer? And I'll call LaunchFlows a second layer plugin. It doesn't need absolutely for you to use Elementor, although we recommend it. You can use a variety of page builders, including Gutenberg, but it really works best with free Elementor. But it absolutely needs WooCommerce. So if I was trying to make an e-commerce plugin or something, obviously you have to look for those things that attract people to this is an e-commerce plugin, or as you said, it's a pop-up plugin. LaunchFlows is easy to explain now, but only after working with people and finding out their pain points. So what we say on the website and what I explained to you now is what LaunchFlows does is it makes it possible to do things with WooCommerce you could never do before. Sales funnels, upsell, downsell, marketing, registration. Done and done. The reason that it doesn't do things like, well, by the way, it does do pop-ups, but it doesn't do pop-ups itself, is that there's a philosophy that I was just sort of trying to describe of the modern WordPress stack is that each plugin stays in its own lane, like runners in the Olympics. If you cross over, you're out of the race. The old way of doing WordPress is every plugin trying to stay in everybody's lane and doing everything for everybody. And then like a bad TV dinner or something, like everything's mixed up in every tray container. We say that if you keep with using the specialty pop-up plugin you have, maybe it's Elementor, maybe it's Gravity Forms, maybe it's something else. LaunchFlows directly works with that. So you can have a pop-up that allows an instant registration to your sales funnel, or you can have a pop-up that sells somebody into a multi-step process. And it requires, quite frankly, a lot of feedback from the users of, do you know what I'm explaining to you? I mean, a lot of deer in the headlights moments. And that's why, to be honest, I really enjoy working with customers at the very moment the idea comes out and giving them stuff to use, because you never know where the pain is until they explain it to you and test it. You know, you can make hypotheses, but relationships are relationships, whether it's with a software pain solution or a personal friendship. You just have to get into it to know what the thing is you're solving.
That's great. We're going to go and have our break. We'll be back in a few moments, and I'm going to be asking Spencer some of the lessons he's learned through the process of launching LaunchFlows. We'll be back in a few moments. We're coming back. We've had a bit of a chat with Spencer Forum, the founder of LaunchFlows, a friend of the show, personal friend, and panelists on the WPTonic Roundtable show that we do every Friday at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. And you can join us live for that great show by going to the WPTonic Facebook page around 8:30 every Friday, and you'll be able to watch the discussion live. We've got Brian Gardner, the former founder and the joint founder of Studio Press, joining us. But obviously that will be before you be hearing this, but there we go. So what are some of the lessons that you've, LaunchFlows, before we went live, we had a little bit of a discussion, and it's been around 9, 10, 11 months since LaunchFlow has gone public. What have been some of the surprises, some of the things you could share that you didn't anticipate that you've learned through this process, Spencer?
Yeah. Interestingly, there are things that could be construed as like more positive than I imagined, but a lot of them also have to do with the messaging. So I would say that because I had done this before, I wasn't as surprised as I would have been the first or second time of doing this at how much effort actually goes into something that's a spontaneous idea. So as I indicated, I never intended to write a plugin. I thought I was done with development. I had built a business around it for 5 years, and it was exhausting. And it's a challenge. You have to be in a different mindset to be a marketer and a daily, person who does consulting calls versus a developer. I mean, it's literally the other part of your brain. I think if you're going to develop anything, make sure it's in an area of interest that you don't feel like you're working. Because I thought this was I got a bunch of these little patches for this other software product, and I'll just bundle them together and call it a weekend and, give it away for free or something. And then I realized, like reading a Tom Clancy book or something, I couldn't put it down. And one thing opened up another door and another door, and not in a bad way, but in oh my God, I can do this. And now I can do that. But now the problem is I have this, one-day project turn into 3 months, and I have 100 document pages of randomness and all the videos that I like to make. I've got a real mess on my hands. And so you have to decide at that point, is it something you love enough to Marie Kondo it, organize your sock drawers, get it into a real product and product market fit? Or is it something you're willing to, like a GitHub thing, sort of, good luck guys, it's yours, do what you want with it. So if you love it, it doesn't feel like a lot of work. And I would say that's true here, irregardless of the money. The second thing is that in today's development world, the tools and the techniques are so out there, right? I'm not a professionally trained developer. I don't even call myself a developer. I'm a hacker. But there's enough info out there that I, spending the time and my leisure time, can go out there and learn to do stuff that I always dreamed. How cool would that be to do? Like speaking a foreign language. But having some project like this is actually quite good for a busy-minded person, because you can really go farther than you ever dreamed of. It's not a barrier to entry problem. And so I would encourage anybody to say the optimistic thing. If you find a topic you love that has a pain you can solve, and you love doing it as a side gig, you can one day wake up wearing a hat you never expected to wear. At the same time, I, as a marketer, get to flex all those muscles, right? I get to decide what is the thing it's solving and how to explain it and how to price it. And weirdly enough, this is the pain I'm solving versus what you might have thought. And then you get to do the politics, which I don't really love, but the relationship part of politics is fun. To know that I'm in the circle of all the people that are creating stuff, at the same time having an influence on the people that can make stuff in a world where, let's be honest, WordPress has, 38% of all websites. It's kind of cool, I mean, where else am I going to go? I'm not going to get in a rock band and get to be in front of that many people. But if you make a plugin that becomes successful, you kind of get to be, like, in your own mind, exposed to a big audience of people. So there's a lot of excitement for anybody who chooses to do it. No prior experience required.
I'll throw over, it's just a complimentary quick follow-up question before I throw it over to Stephen, but do you feel that for all the benefits you just explained, that you like coding, do you think they would have, if you had the budget, or you might have had the budget but you'd chosen this path, do you think, reflecting back, you would have, because of the difference between the mindsets between marketer explaining, handling customer, and coder, that you would have been better handling the coding side of it over to somebody else, and you just concentrate on the marketing and the educational part of it, which you're such an expert on because of your experience with, with your previous businesses?
I love that question. And I love the question because it dovetails into what Stephen asked, but it also dovetails into something I can offer to anybody. When I was doing my early days before WordPress on a SaaS platform that was, let's say, open source-ish, because they had an open REST API and they encouraged people to make stuff. And it was a Mark Andreessen company that had $100 million of funding. And they said, here's the free thing, make what you want. Well, I had a coding partner who had similar interests and a great friend. But I always felt limited because I would get, as a marketer, these incredible ideas, or the customer wants this. And then I had to go to him, which he was very receptive to, and he had to make it happen in a vacuum and then hand it back to me. And as a fair person, I had to accept what he gave me, because I can't say, hey man, you made those eggs and they don't taste good. I had to be like, it's pretty good, a little more salt or something. So I always felt limited. In WordPress, you can pick a second level product that's an accessory to something, go out directly, find out what the pain is. And in many cases, the product doesn't even have to be a full-blown plugin. It could be a couple snippets, or it could be a lesson or a course. But the benefit of being a double threat, being a marketer first in contact with the customers, and being able to immediately create what the customer says they need, it's a superpower. And it's not my own superpower. It's a superpower anybody can achieve. And I will tell you, it's a competitive advantage, because that other company where I was originally helping their clients, they had a division of labor. There was the marketer guy and there was the coding guy. And the coding guy had a team of people that had still does, a very popular set of products and services that obviously had priorities. So they had a ton of customers who were really unhappy. And so that left room for a guy like me as a double threat to come in and go, what's your problem? Oh, I can do that today. Oh, what's your problem? I can do that today. And it was so easy to achieve satisfaction in a customer, like the hot dog vendor who wheels up to a stadium where they're not selling hot dogs. Like every Tom, Dick, and Harry coming in and out of there wants to buy a hot dog. It's not hard, because you go where the pain exists. And so that's my answer, is that I would always rather be a marketer who can do enough coding to make the solution than to hire somebody where I had no idea what they're making, I'm at their mercy, and I can't get the instant satisfaction. Because boy, oh boy, is that incredible. When you have somebody post on Facebook, hey, can your product do this? And you go, hold on, mic drop, here you go. And then you release a new version of the product, blows people's minds.
Yeah, I think that's like something that's like I'm super impressed with. What's like just following kind of what you've been doing for a little while on Facebook. Like you said, like I'll see somebody that said, "Hey, can you do this?" And then later that evening, there's this video with you, Spence, just walking the person through. Like, yeah, now all you have to do is click this button over here, and now you have this real hyper custom specialized flow. And the speed, that turnaround time that happens is incredible. So you're right, that is definitely like a superpower that I don't think there are a lot of plugin shops out there that have that skill set or that ability to listen to the customer and implement the things that need to happen from a very customer focused area in a timely manner, right? Because oftentimes, like myself, like there's a plugin that I like to use or something, I make a feature request and it's going to be 8 months till that feature, even has a chance of getting implemented. And by that time, I have to move on and use something else.
Right. And I want to give credit where credit's due. My desire to become a developer and do those things had a couple caveats on it. First of all, by choosing a second tier plugin that accessorizes off somebody else's core things, I was able to have the advantage of avoiding the mistakes of those other products, which all sought to interfere with, hijack, or break the core behavior of the product they're working with, which I found to be their biggest handicap and still is. So I was forced to a set of rules that I said, I refuse to break the core product's behavior. That way I won't be in a pickle if I do these cool things. And there's other plugins that do it. But the second thing I was very inspired by, some of the people we just referred to and some that we haven't, but I'll mention, like Jack Arturo getting to know him, his product is incredibly complex. He's a true developer's developer. Nevertheless, he's extremely good at staying in his lane. And so he often does that same thing as well. Like somebody asks for a feature and it just pops out and people are like, oh my God, you are the best. But also if you look at him, even though he no longer is, oh, my throat is going to, even though he's no longer the development side, like Pippin Williamson was very inspirational to me in general, because when he was active, they would oftentimes have these very clever, you know, he's a double threat. He was marketing it and he was creating the plugin before he had the bigger team. Now their development is like the opposite. It's glacial. That's not I'm not being uncomplimentary. It's just because they have a bigger audience, a bigger team, they've got to be more careful about breaking stuff. But yeah, it's fascinating that I get inspired on my own. I get excited by some of our clients where they're using the same TV dinner of plugins that I'm recommending and making a couple of them. They take the same TV dinner formula and just pour in their own product or service. They could be a dating advice or photography advice or, you know, some specific little service. And unlike more normal people who make a couple bucks here and there, their thing goes through the moon. And that's what's cool, because if you can control the tool and then you can work on your marketing, you can just keep stumbling and stumbling until you find the marketing part that goes, wow, could be in a niche. And all of a sudden, something that was, you know, overlooked by most people becomes incredibly lucrative.
What are you doing for marketing now? Because like you started very like community like based and focused, right? And building those relationships. Is it still very much of a relationship sort of marketing effort, or how have you changed that and pivoted that over time?
What's interesting is that I want to explain something that's kind of coming around to your answer. I find in the WordPress world, because we've got open source to start with, that there are what I'll call upstream market opportunities and downstream. And I don't mean to be uncomplimentary saying downstream like that's bad, but downstream would be people who are customers either starting out in WordPress or who are WordPress only. And let's just say they are still experimenting, they're still budget minded, they don't have a product market fit, so they're not monetized enough to pay for a real, this is a no-brainer. The upstream opportunities are the people that have a product market fit and are tending to come to me through other relationships and other like onboardings, but they've been using CRMs or closed source platforms that are quite expensive and claim to do everything under the sun for an extraordinary price, but don't always deliver. If you are in a situation where you've got that market, I like to say that, you know, you can experiment with the product at both levels at a price point that is objectively fair to both. But at some point, you have to decide whether you're a mass market product or you're a kind of personal concierge product. And I would say that where I've chosen to position LaunchFlows is at the moment is more in the direction of upstream, and ironically, more as an accessory to the larger consulting and other direct help opportunities. So I wouldn't call it a lead magnet or a tripwire product, because it's still, even with the discount, it's $225. But we've made it simple enough that you're not going to find us doing a Black Friday sale for, you know, lifetime deal for $99, because you're not, if you think that's a good thing, you're not the customer that's ultimately going to buy where I really make my bread and butter, which is helping you with the actual business. Yeah, exactly. Like Noah's business and a great business, but that's not the business. And our other competitors in the space, the ones that I was referring to, they're downstream marketing. They're marketing to, because of the marketer person, you know, who's extraordinarily good at what he does, they're marketing to the people that find them on YouTube and otherwise and go, oh, you know, you sold me the lifetime deal for $500 and great. But the deal with the devil there is those people don't realize they bought a plugin that they don't know how to use in the space where they don't know how to connect it to the other plugins. And then when they start to use it, just like a ClickFunnels or Kartra or Kajabi, they realize like, oh my God, I need somebody to help me to actually achieve the goals with this. Crickets. They're, hey, sorry, we don't know you. We sold you the thing. Good luck. You know what I mean? Go to our Facebook group and leave a question for
in fairness, you could, there's about 3 to 4 actual products that come to my mind. It's a kind of general problem with, WordPress, its plugin ecosystem has great strengths. But
Absolutely.
what you've pointed out is one of the weaknesses in the actual ecosystem of WordPress in general, isn't it?
It is, because, like, again, let's call it what it is. In today's world, as of 2021, we're seeing a differentiation. So we'll talk about this maybe in a minute, where I predict things are going to go. But the differentiator between upstream and downstream marketing is going to be the difference between people who just take the ready to go consumer level bundled pricing of a random plugin versus, I'm really not buying the plugin. I'm buying a relationship into an author and a system of plugins that work to achieve the higher goals I need, so that I don't end up losing money, losing time, losing my business over things that otherwise would have been fixable.
Yeah, I just because there's a need. Funny enough, that's what WPTonic is trying to do in the course and membership area, is to help people who want the freedom of WordPress, but give them support and guidance where they need it the most. Plus offer all the tools and the hosting and everything in one bundle. And I've learned an enormous amount over the past year by launching this. It's been an 18-month process for me. We're going to finish the podcast, but Spencer's agreed to stay on. We're going to put in the bonus content, which you'll be able to see on the WPTonic YouTube channel. And I also post a load of training and other videos on that channel. So I suggest that you do subscribe to it as a support of the show. In the bonus content, we're going to be discussing our predictions for 2021 when it comes to the world of WordPress. So I think it's going to be a great little discussion. So like I say, do join us, and you'll be able to watch the whole interview plus the bonus content, like I say, on the WPTonic YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that. It's been growing quite quickly recently, so I'm very pleased. So Spencer, what's the best way to find out more about you and LaunchFlows?
Well, the easiest way, you could go to launchflows.com. You can also join our free Facebook group, which I'm proud of that unlike a lot of groups, is actually really active, both from myself as well as we're 400 or 500 active users now of, people really using the product. And that's, I think, a nice reflection upon how the community has grown. It's not like, please help us, we don't know what we're doing. It's the people who speak up are the people who've been using the product. And I'm also there with those same suggestions of, hey, tell me what you like, don't like, what I can change. So that's a fun way to get direct contact. But also I encourage anybody to just set up a free call with me. So, our consultancy business is at WPLaunchify.com, and you can click the button there and just have a call, because what my marketing efforts essentially are is I take 4 to 6 calls every day from people with any number of WordPress, WooCommerce related issues or marketing automation, membership. And you just tell me what your setup is, what you have a question about. Ironically, it often leads to a free answer that helps you immediately, but then you realize, like, wow, you could come on over for a virtual hour and help me, remodel my kitchen and make those brownies and stuff like that.
That's great. And Stephen, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and what you're up to?
Yeah, head over to zipfish.io, run a speed test, and see how much faster your website can be.
And I can really say Stephen's helped with the WPTonic website. It's a lot quicker. Him and his team do an excellent job of making your website a lot quicker. So I highly recommend Stephen's service. Like I say, please join us for the bonus content. We'll see you next week with another great guest, or it'll be an internal discussion between me and Stephen around a subject around WordPress. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye.
Bye.
So it's bonus content, folks. So Spencer, like I say, before we go into the predictions, I just want to ask you this quick question, which I think was best to leave to the bonus content. Now, you, I can't remember when you became a regular panelist on the WPTonic Roundtable show. and you've become a bit of a fixture now. I always enjoy our discussions and our slight disagreements, but you've become a very positive voice on the show. And also you decided to sponsor the show as a secondary sponsor, which is much appreciated. And then you're also doing my webinars with me, and we're still trying to find a fit with that. And we've agreed to continue to try and find the best solution when it comes to webinars. What do you think you've got from joining the WP tribe? You know, what attracted you to come on board? You know, you're a pretty busy guy. You've got a lot of fingers. What did you think you got from it so far?
Well, I mean, in fairness, you and I met long before that, because you and I met because you were a community member. I think it's fair to say a client student of mine in 1WD. And when we met, you were working on a project which was very interesting. But after all these years, I think I also was one of your guests on the very early WPTonic show when you had Bill Conrad.
Yeah, Crazy Bill. Still a friend, but he's totally bonkers.
So when I got asked to join you on the WPTonic Friday show, I really enjoy it, because there I have not a different personality, but I would say that I don't mind being a rebel, or I don't mind being an already outcast member of the WordPress, kingdom of Automatic, because we get a lot of fun talking about
compared to me, Spencer, you're not
in other words, there's certain people, and I used to love Morton. I still love Morton, but I loved Morton's attitude and talk on the show. But he had professional reasons. It was no longer a good career move to be involved in saying stuff that pissed off certain people. And I don't have that problem. I like to be the Emperor's New Clothes kid. So what I love most about it is it doesn't matter what the topic. Plus, everybody on the show, Sally's been there longer than I have, but Sally and yourself and Stephen and John and whomever else joins us and so forth. It's just a nice way to reset my brain. And also now in COVID, snap your fingers and it's Friday. Snap your fingers, it's Friday. It's like the only clock in my house that I pay attention to.
So why did you agree to become the sponsor? What do you think you're getting from it?
Well, I mean,
you're not getting direct sales. It's very, unless you offer a very massive discount. It's and that's only very short lived. Is it a branding exercise, which I think on the long term is a good idea?
There was a Seinfeld episode, and we watch them all again. I'm like a 90s guy anyway. There's a Seinfeld episode where Jerry has something happen, and then he realizes that something else always happens to balance it out. He's like, it always evens out, right? Like he loses $20. He's like, oh, I found $20. Oh, he lost the show. Oh, I got caught. I think that's how the universe works. So you're doing good work. I enjoy the people in the show. You're not asking an unreasonable amount to be a sponsor. So to me, it helps to support you, because your endeavors, one way or another, are going to even out and balance out whatever minimal cost it is to me by goodwill, good faith, good karma, something. And another part about it is, and I was really reflecting on that, and I said it earlier, it doesn't seem real, but it is true that what other business opportunity can you go to in the world, or sports or fame, where you can literally from nowhere be in a relationship with all the top tier people? I mean, you literally are in touch with everybody, and vis-a-vis my relationship with the show or my own efforts, if that boat floats, this WordPress boat keeps floating to 50% or 60% or 80%, like we'll all be able to say, hey, we're like founding fathers of this particular gig. Even though we're not at Automatic, we still have the standing and we have relationships with all the people who are from day one, the John James Jacobys and so on and so forth. And I've known all those guys indirectly since day one of WordPress, because I was here in 2006, but that's a crazy long time ago. But now,
I think the great thing also that Brian Gardner, JJ have agreed on a kind of semi-regular basis to join us. So I'm getting some of the real, looking for the right word, the right phrase, some of the real kind of big name people that have really done things to join us and contribute their voice to the show. So I'm looking forward to that in this year. So our prediction. So have you got any? I've got one prediction. I'll start off with one. I've got one prediction, and I want to make it clear that I've not heard anything through the grapevine, and I might be and I'm sure Spencer will totally disagree with me with this. Is that I'm pretty sure that Gravity Forms will be sold this year to another company. I would put $10 on it, actually. So first of all, what did you think of that prediction, Spencer?
You know, I have not I think I'm Facebook friends with him, but I've never had the pleasure of speaking with Carl Hancock. But Carl Hancock's business is, if not the original, one of the original perpetual money machines, right? Like he grew that from nothing and he was there at the beginning. So now, you know, I laugh because, you know, they're very respectful of your having early adopter price. So whatever I paid 14 years ago or whatever for that thing, I'm still paying the same price. Other companies don't seem to get that, but it's really cool because I'll just pay that forever. I don't know what their user count is. It has to be in the millions by now or over 1 million. So it'd be very interesting to me, just speculating, why Carl would sell literally a laundromat that just makes money perpetually for a cash out.
Can I explain to you why?
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested because, like,
yeah,
otherwise,
it's like basically Gravity Forms is probably we have no idea. I don't know, but I would imagine it's a very profitable business.
It's easy to calculate. It's in the mid 7 figures.
Yeah,
easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
But if a business, what people realize, if a business is reasonably stagnant, it's not going forward. It's actually going backwards because costs always increase. And there's just there's forces in nature and they're replicated in business. If the business isn't going forward, it's going backwards. There's no choice. And if you lose the passion for the business and you lose the passion to move it forward, or there's not the opportunity to move it forward, you'd be best advised to sell it to somebody that can move it forward, pocket the money, have a rest, and then go into something else. And I think that's the position with Gravity Forms. It's really not going anywhere. It's not really growing substantially. And I think the founder has, to some extent, lost interest in the business. And I think it's, and you can only sell a business for a good profit if it's a good business. So I would suggest this is the right time to sell, Spencer.
I mean, I guess the assumption there, and I can't argue with you because I have no facts, but I don't get the same impression, is that I see Gravity Forms not really going back or staying stagnant. I actually feel like Gravity Forms has got all the components and it's as relevant as ever, even within a page builder world. I can't say about boredom, but from what I've seen, Carl's got a team of people that run it. And the other thing is, you know, I'm a fan of 37 Signals and a Chicago philosophy, which is to say, if you have the relationship of your life or the business of your life, and it does everything you need it to do, and literally keeps your mind occupied to whatever level you want to participate, the worst thing you can do in the world is end the relationship, end the business, take the money, because 5 minutes later, you're going to be left bored out of your mind looking to replace that with something else. But now, disadvantage of 14 years later, it's a completely different thing than, like, they have a moat around them that's 1 million miles wide. Nobody can touch Gravity Forms in terms of like its established reputation. You can come up with different products or features, and many of those come in the page builder. But boy, nobody can say anything bad about the capacity of, let's say, the Gravity Forms. Similarly with Divi, you know, Divi is not my first choice anymore.
Oh, so is this going to be one of your predictions then, Divi? Let's move on to Divi then.
Well, like with Divi, the choice that they made, which I think was a good choice, they chose to focus on design first, functionality, speed, marketing automation, capacities, mechanics second. And they did that at the very clear cost of optimization and speed and other stuff, like Stephen's expertise. But I've tried to be objective and test this and say, like, there's just that is a real problem to have a marketing automation or a sales site built on Divi versus, let's say, some clean theme in Elementor. So I'm not making a prediction. They're not going anywhere. That's the opposite. My point is they've got so many millions and millions of users who really want the artistic stuff first and foremost that he would never sell that thing. Why would he sell that thing? I mean, Nick is like sitting on a pile of cash and he makes a video here and there, but he's got a team of people that run everything.
Well, that's what I like about our discussions, because my point of view is very different to yours. But, you know, there is no right and wrong. You know, you have your point of view, you have your biases, and, you know, we will have to agree to disagree, because I definitely think that if you want to sell a business and sell it at a good price, you can't do that when it's in decline. It becomes then a fire sale, and you're not going to get a very good price. So there's always a time to walk away from something. Stephen, have you got any predictions in the WordPress area?
Yeah, my prediction this year is that we're going to see somebody go through Y Combinator with a plugin only based business that is going to have some massive VC money behind it.
Wow,
I think we've seen enough acquisitions happen in the last couple of years for big enough figures that somebody's going to start looking at a pure plug-in play where it's built to get a bunch of users and sell it off, you know, in a 5 to 10 year sort of span. And so I bet we'll see somebody come through the Y Combinator with that goal in mind.
It's not a prediction, but I wanted to ask Spencer this, and also Stephen. You know, we've had Fluent CRM. You know, I had a relationship to some degree with Groundhog, and I wish Agent and Groundhog the best. But, you know, we've had Fluent CRM into the market, and especially Fluent Forms. How do you think these Indian-based plugin shops have affected the ecosystem of the plugin ecosystem of WordPress? And do you know, like you say, you know, in the podcast part of the show, you've done this coding yourself and also marketing. Do you think those days of being able to do that are declining because of these Indian coding shops in the market so effectively and dramatically? You know, what's your thoughts about that, Spencer?
No, actually, I have a unique maybe answer to that, which is the really amazing part of the world we live in today on professional level is that other than time zone differences, I can literally meet the author and their whole team of any plugin, any theme, any business. I have on a personal level many friends and peers who are venture capitalists, and they enlist my professional help for their various companies to babysit the kids and so forth. So what I actually find interesting about that is that as more business owners now are absolutely required for survival to move their offline business online, we're in a world that is growing in the number of people total, the number of businesses online, and the number of needs. So what happens is it's like exponential growth requires exponential professional services. And the differentiator is, what do certain people do? The people that I have met who run, and I'm working with other companies like Wisdom Labs, for example, like they have a huge team. One of the ones that I have this other like thing from last year about is actually really, really well known. They're in India for having a team of 35 people. They're filling a need for creating products and services for those businesses who are at the varying degrees of newbie up to pro. Those of us who want to be specialists can stay one step ahead of the curve, like at the early adopter level, where we need to be translators between the new technology and the existing technology. And I think these larger firms fill in at the point of like common person adoption into mass market appeal. So if you want to think of it like in some military terms, it's not like they're not inventive. They do great, amazing things. But to explain a concept to, let's say, an American business owner, you have a great advantage being an American entrepreneur who lives in a cultural place where you understand the nuances and can use your background there to say, this is how it does it. Hey, it's Spence, blah, 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 blah. Is different than somebody who comes from another place, another cultural, another like voice, and trying to do that. So I don't know, like on a battleship or in a starship or something, everybody has their role, everybody has their position, and there's a real need for those kinds of shops. And I love that, actually. I wanted to say my prediction was something that I've talked about in 2020, and it is happening. In fact, it really, I think it's here. We just have to figure out what to call it. And you and I have talked about that. And that is this: in the WordPress ecosystem of 200 something thousand plus options, there already is a platform. The platform is self-hosted, but it is a stack of things along with certain specialties. And each of you, sorry, I keep hitting my mic, each of you have your role in that as well. That if you went to Kartra or ClickFunnels or Kajabi, especially ClickFunnels, the software, the product is substandard compared to what you can do now in WordPress. The issue is that they're not selling the software. They're selling the dream of, look, you'll have a golden record for selling $1 million of pharmaceuticals. There's nobody in WordPress who's giving that clear message that says, here's your ClickFunnels in WordPress. And I don't think that would be advisable anyway, because Russell Brunson is a genius at conveying basic marketing principles and making them exciting. But to compete with the software, definitely in 2021 and probably in the next couple of weeks, you will see and hear about, here is the stack, here's how you do things, and whether you're an individual user, here's the things. And all of those plugin authors are ones with whom I have a relationship, all of the service providers. There will be a sort of certified consortium of people that say, yeah, there's anything you want to choose, but in the meantime, if you take these few products, you're guaranteed they all work together in a predictable way using this methodology. And if you're let's say an integrator, you're a consultant of your own, you can be certified to use this system just like you would have from Microsoft or Oracle or in the old days Infusionsoft and Salesforce. And it won't cost you a lot, but then you'll have a badge and you'll have authenticity, but you'll also have direct contact with the people who make the stuff. And it's really an extension of what I was just saying I do personally. It's like you have an idea of what you want to do. Good luck telling Mark Benioff's people to go build that into Salesforce. Whereas if you come here, Jack Arturo and Munir over here and Spence over here and Stephen over here, we'll just get together and we'll put that into our respective plugins that day or week or something. Ta-da. So I think we can change the way WordPress works. And there's a slight political motivation there. We talk on the WPTonic show all the time about the motivations of Matt and everybody else is for pleasing the venture capitalists to create essentially a SaaS product out of the goods of WordPress.
Obviously we're going to be discussing this tomorrow. Just as I did something I regretted, which I don't normally do. I was so irritated with the story around Automatic offering
competitive space, right?
That I went to the tavern and I posted, and it was blocked straight away. It was taken down. It was taken down in less than 15 minutes. I presume by Tavistock, Justin, which I have. Justin, I understand your position. And actually, I think you done me a favour because it wasn't rude and it didn't use inflammatory language, in my opinion. But
you're provocative, let's say.
Well, I got to the point pretty bluntly about my feelings about, and I just think it's really very sorry that what Matt Marrowhead, where he's decided to try and move this ship, and his recent actions. I just think it's very sorry and really in business terms totally unnecessary. But compared to what happened yesterday, it doesn't really matter anyway.
Well, it doesn't, because that's a catalyst, right? I mean, not to interrupt you, but like the catalyst is when Matt and his co-founder started this, they locked themselves into open source, which has been beneficial for all of us. but live by the sword, die by the sword. They have venture capital money. They have to do what they have to do. I don't think any of us would disagree that's what he has to do. But that also
no, I do actually, because I'm sorry
Well-
to interrupt, but it's another thing where we have to agree to disagree. But
not the
as
point.
friend, I think there's many opportunities where they could use that capital.
But it's not the point.
Yeah.
It's not the point. The point is they do their decision. I'm not trying to interrupt you, but I'm saying, like, don't misconstrue my point. I'm not giving them like a hat tip for what they're doing. I think it's a mistake as well, as you do. I'm saying we can ignore their choice because he committed to the open source. So we all have our choice. And I think what I'm referring to about my motives here for 2021 with this consortium is this WordPress stack. We can make a declaration of rights, a declaration of independence, if you will, a declaration of this is how to do it in 2021 and beyond. And it's free information. It's available to any of you because the players are all independently in charge of their own product, their own monetization. They are winning because the customers are happy and win, not because they're pleasing a third party that funded them. And although I don't think Stephen is wrong that there will be competitors trying to do like a plug-in VC-based thing, not having a VC-based company and already having players that have established businesses means we can focus 100% on winning through satisfaction. And since it's open source software, I feel like we have nothing that can get in our way, because should WordPress ever go off to be forked as a Jetpack, blah, 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 they can't take the software away. We could just fork the main software and call it a day. But for the end user and the implementer, the exciting part, with so many people having to be online now and that market growing and growing, there will be so many new layers of service required and products and opportunities that if we can establish, like Russell Brunson did with ClickFunnels, here's the stack. Everything else you can sort of go around and add to it, but you got to conform to the stack. Everything else will be much easier. Whereas right now, those are the two pains that everybody has. Too many choices, and I built a Frankenstein monster. If we can eliminate that with a standardized stack of stuff, then everything else, without being, I'm not making them, they didn't make a mistake, but there were products in the past, like Rainmaker, that were like in the same vein, but they made a critical error. They customized everything that only worked in its own environment, and it wasn't universal. I'm saying it still has to be universal, but you still educate people.
Well, you lose the one by doing that to some extent. You lose one of the reasons why people look at WordPress, which is modularization, as I call it. I'm not even sure I have a habit of making my own words, actually, Spencer.
Norm Crosby used to do that back in the 70s.
Yeah, there we go. I think we're going to wrap it up. Hopefully, listeners and viewers, you'll join us next week. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's always great to have this conversation with Spencer and with my co-host. And thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Stephen, for choosing to become my co-host and taking over about 3 or 4 months ago. I think you've just done a fantastic job, and I just wanted to say that publicly, Stephen. Sorry, go on.
It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Right.
I want to say, by the way, that I met Stephen a few months back, and I introduced him to like the idea that I was doing this. But more importantly, what I love about Stephen is he and I hit it off really well, because Stephen's business, if I may say this, recognizes that hosting by itself it's generic, it's like it's a commodity. But Stephen has decided, I think that's the move, to focus on the pain point of hosting, which is like we were talking about earlier before the show started. You got hosting, now you have a million hard things to solve, speed, optimization, and so forth. And it's the exact same philosophy that I've ascribed to this whole time, is that there's so many people that are just helpless. I mean, not because they're helpless people, but they just don't know where to turn to. That I think that's a great idea for his particular niche, is to be a specialist in that particular space. And does a great job of that. Yeah.
We'll see you next week with another great guest or a great internal conversation. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye. Take care.